We're so grateful that you're here for the August Interfaith Council of Rossmore's Big Questions. And we look forward to hearing great speakers today on this year's topic. Take it away, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Will. It's good to see all of you join us, you people who are asking questions and are looking for answers. So welcome to our big question this year. Is humankind good or selfish? Thank you to the Interfaith Council of Rossmore and to the Big Questions Committee, Channing Miller, Ruth Ahern, and Gloria Sunshine. And of course, Will McGarvey, we couldn't do it without you. Will has been hosting us for, for 4 years, ever since we've been having Zoom. And Will is the Executive Director of Contra Costa County Interfaith Council. And thanks also to Rossmore Channel 28, who is recording this, and it will be on Channel 28. I can't tell you how to find it, but I'm sure there is a way to find it. And gratitude to the folks at Rossmore News for putting the article in the paper a couple of times every month. It does take a village to do almost anything. So is humankind good or selfish? So far this year, we have been privileged to hear 10 representatives from 10 spiritual paths share their philosophical, psychological, and spiritual perspectives on this question. And we look forward to hearing 2 more today, one from Christianity and one from Judaism. As I was preparing to introduce our speakers, I focused on our question and noticed that within this question, there are other questions that come up. And one question that really stood out for me is, what is the relevance of this question to our daily lives? Why should we even be thinking about it and be looking for answers for our personal selves? If we think about our daily experiences, we recognize that kind words bring kind feelings. Feelings of positive energy, wholeness, not only in the person we are talking to, but even more clearly in ourselves. So when the big question of goodness or selfishness is applied to individuals' daily life, it appears that the answer is determined moment by moment by each of us, by each individual, as they live their daily lives. Of course, there's the whole news thing, of the world, but that is a whole different matter and really quite removed from us in many ways. So let's hear what our speakers have to say. I would like to introduce our first speaker, David D.J. Larsen. For 30 years, Mr. Larsen has found fulfillment as a devoted volunteer in the Christian faith, attending the Bay Area Christian Church with his family. Together, they have cherished the opportunities for fellowship, using their gifts and talents to meet needs within their community. Professionally, as an entrepreneur specializing in wireless tech and real estate and AI, his focus is on empowering individuals to reach their aspirations through innovative solution sets, whatever those are. Guided by faith, he finds contentment in embracing life's opportunities with his family and his friends. When he is not working, he can be found running the scenic peaks of the East Bay. You look like you're in pretty good shape there. Where his faith and effort converge in challenging adventures that consistently exceed expectations and enriching all aspects of his life. So now DJ will now talk about those challenging adventures. No, that's not quite it, is it? Welcome, Mr. Larsen. I think those would be kind of interesting to hear about. So, thank you, Mr. Larsen. Welcome. You're muted. Unmute.
There we go.
There
Sarah,
we go.
thank you. And may I ask a favor?
Sure.
Can I get a high sign at 5 minutes?
Yeah, so what are we planning on? About 15 minutes in, high sign? Okay,
That
great.
would be good. It just helps me land.
Sure, I I appreciate that.
Yeah,
It is important to keep track of the, time somewhat. Okay, so,
absolutely.
right, good.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Boom. Share my screen. All right. Can I get a thumbs up on whether or not it's visible?
It's
Great.
visible? Yeah.
Great. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come in. When Sunshine had reached out to me, I obviously was a bit taken back and didn't understand what she was looking for, but then having a chance to talk about the question and talk about what Interfaith has been doing and the whole perspective there, it definitely broadened my perspective, and I'm eager to understand more and more. I was given an opportunity to look back at some of the other discussions, so I have somewhat of an idea, but I look forward to being able to add to your library and to your continued support. Let me go ahead and kick this off. Is humanity good or selfish? Well, I am a father, a husband, and a friend, and a son, I imagine, as well. And when I ask my family, am I selfish? I get an honest response. And typically it is not all the time. Not all the time. So I am not selfish all the time. But I do appreciate the perspective my family has. As Sarah mentioned, I work in the technology sector in various forms, and I get to do adventurous things. What I am not is I am not a theologian. I am not paid by a church or an organization. I get to do this I'm an amateur Christian, I guess I would say. So my ability to answer the questions and look at these different things comes from 30 years of being able to practice. And they say practice makes perfect, but not yet. So I hope to be able to leverage the faith that I've been able to build upon in the Christian faith, from the Bible and from experiences, from wise people, from understanding, but mostly from the life of being a parent and learning how to embrace faith and what it looks like on a daily basis. Sarah asked the question, what is the relevance of asking the question? And I think it's for growth, to be aware of where I'm at, to be aware of where I can be, and the support from God, family, and friends to be able to get me there. Next question. So from my perspective, from a Christian perspective, there are basically two things that I need to focus on. I guess there's many things, but the two things are to love God, and to love God is to love other people. And I think that would be super easy if it wasn't for selfishness. And I think being able to look at what loving God is and loving people, to me, they're two separate things, but then when they do come together, they provide a cohesion. They help me to understand what my role is in my relationship with God and my relationship with people, as opposed to I'm not just a component. Loving God allows me to love other people. Being able to read the scriptures and being able to understand how the forgiveness that I get, and for the opportunities that I get to learn how to love others in ways that aren't based on my nature. I think loving others is a sacrifice. And growing up, I thought sacrifice was what made noise when you dropped it into the contribution pouch. But sacrifice to me is something far greater. And I think besides my faith in the Bible, I think parenting has taught me the greatest lessons in sacrifice. What it is to sacrifice for my children helps me understand what my parents sacrificed for me, and then what my wife sacrifices for my children, where I won't sacrifice. So it helps me to understand the sacrifices that she's willing to do. I think it's easy to say, but it's very hard to live on the daily basis. What does sacrifice mean? When it says to love others, does that mean everyone? Does that mean everyone all the time? Is the effort really worth it? And yeah, the results are worth it. The responses may not be, but the results are worth it. God asks us in the scripture below is to love our neighbors as ourselves. That is a mighty tall order to be able to do that on a regular basis. But fortunately, I get a lot of grace and mercy, and a lot of lessons because other people are trying to do the same for me. When I think about selfishness, it's so easy for me to point out in other people, but it's hard for me to point out in myself. And when I think about the desire for things, or I can always look at selfishness at other people and go, yeah, that's not something that bothers me, or I'm not affected by that. But the concern and excessive desire for myself, or to seek my own opinion or my own security, I think those things are things that go undisclosed or uncovered, unfound, as I'm thinking about my own needs. My own needs eclipse those different situations and things that do come up. It helps me when somebody expresses their own needs. I think that helps clarify that, but it also helps me to read. And I appreciate being able to have the scriptures, to be able to read examples of what selfishness looks like in examples, so that I can see that as a model, and then be able to translate that into what it looks like for me here and now. When I think about, you mentioned solution sets. So as we develop use technology to provide solutions, one of the solution sets I was involved in was delivering the first set of mobile radios. We used to call them mobile radios, but cell phones. And to think that was a group of people who had an idea, but how they were able to leverage the different efforts of many different people in developing, deploying, and being able to help meet needs went well beyond the initial scope. So being able to see the selfishness of my daily life requires me to engage with others so that I can see more of what we're going after and more of what our solution sets are for people. So solution sets is an opportunity for me to see how I can overcome selfishness. When we asked about is humanity good or selfish? It was an easy answer. Yes, we're selfish. We're born selfish. These are the most selfish people on the face of the earth, babies. If I go by the definition, their single-minded focus is all about them and all about their nature. And having had a few and engaging with others, there's a consistent need expressed through their wants, through their crying, through their screaming, through their laughing, through their joy. So they are individuals who are clearly selfish with respect to meeting their own needs. Another group of selfish people, parents. There is little to no guess what a parent's primary objective is for their children. What we will sacrifice, what we will do, what we will buy, what we will demand in our children, how we will manipulate. There are all these different opportunities for a parent to express our selfishness. We talk often about the incredible bubble that my wife and I have built around our children here in La Miranda, being able to get them to the right school, being able to provide the right soccer team, being able to do all these different things for their benefit. And because they benefit, it helps me not be fearful. So in essence, a great parent, even great dads and parents and moms, we can be very selfish people for our children. I was looking at some documents or some background on genetics and trying to understand the nature of our selfishness. And Richard Dawkins wrote a book in 1976 about the selfish gene, which it was a great book, but it was about survival, mostly about how we are able to move towards things that will perpetuate our species or ourselves. And it didn't really relate to the social as much to the social part of it as it does with respect to selfishness in my life, in my family, and the opportunities that we have to embrace that selfishness. And in fact, in looking at that and comparing with some other literature, selfishness is good. There are good aspects to selfishness, to self-focus. I think we're in a state now, especially talking with my girls, mental and emotional health are very fragile for our kids who have gone through COVID and school on Zoom and whatnot, and getting them self-care or them being aware of their need for self-care has been a huge challenge. But it's also been a great victory being able to have the conversation. It's made us aware of needs and being able to express needs and being able to express the sacrifice needed to meet those different needs. That has been an incredible opportunity to see where self-focus is a good and necessary thing. It's also in the ability to see my daughters as they graduated from high school and going into college, and one starting her first job, is her desire to express herself, to get a job. We being selfish parents, we desire our children to get jobs, to be able to find their next place where they're going to live, to be able to move forward. But there is that desire to see our children do well. There's a desire that we have to express our own lives, our own gifts, our own talents, and to be able to do that as an expression through those talents. When I looked through selfishness, I was looking through the multiple faiths and just looking at their commonalities and seeing what there was. There was no celebration of selfishness, and primarily as it's an hindrance to our spiritual growth. Our self-focus is a trusting in self as opposed to the trusting in God, who continues to desire a relationship with us. So each of the spiritual relationships I was looking at, which by no means do I have a background in being able to communicate clearly, that seem to value the same thing: reducing self so that our relationship with God and with others can grow. The selfishness, the jealousy, and the things that come from that, as the scripture states, those were things that created such a negative and toxic environment that it hurts the relationship in the family, it hurts the relationship in the society, and it hurts overall our relationship with our spiritual side. And it was interesting to see just the connection between all of the different between the faiths that I looked at, and the different ways that the different paths they had to be able to overcome the selfishness. Bringing me to the point of being aware. I think the whole thing about asking the question is, are we aware of our self-centeredness? And I do appreciate that we are all self-centered. It's the radius that makes the difference. It's how we are able to connect with each other and become aware of our own selfishness. And part of what I appreciate about selfishness in my life is it allows me to become aware of what my desires are, what my needs are. A scripture that I appreciate is in Proverbs 19:22. It says, "What a person desires is unfailing love. Better to be poor than a liar." That helps my heart to go, the truth is, vulnerability comes out as I need to be loved, and it is an unconditional love that I desire, and not expressing that love is lying. And that part of holding my heart back and not being vulnerable makes it hard for my wife or my family or my friends or even God to be able to understand really where I'm coming from, for me to be unexpressive or me to be unable to be aware of what my needs are. Once I'm aware of my needs, I'm then aware of the needs of others. The scripture helps me to see that desire for unfailing love is within me and is within other people. So to be able to understand how that connection brings me to the needs of others gives me a path to compassion through empathy. And then ultimately it helped me to understand what my need is for God, for the forgiving power, for the grace, for the mercy, for the wonderful thing that a spiritual life brings. I have a need for that if I'm unaware of myself, then I'm unaware of my needs. And the only things that I'm aware of that would come through would be my emotional challenges, whether it be fear, anger, hunger, or these other elements of my nature that would radiate through. But being aware of my selfish nature, myself gives me access to that. And the Bible is clear that it is a part of my relationship with God that gives me the ability to be aware of my needs for him and my needs for others and how to pursue that. The freedom, I found that this part was a bit more of a challenge for me to be able to see how being aware of selfishness gives me freedom. But from my background, it has been, I was raised in a family where the male authority was either non-existent or extremely abusive. So the challenge I have with the freedom that God calls upon us, or from the scriptures, it says the freedom is there. I have a hard time understanding what I'm supposed to be free from, because what has been normal to me has been normalized through my life. And I think without help from friends and without help from scriptures and with prayer, it would really be hard for me to understand those things that were really locking up my heart, so to speak. The things that I didn't know I was aware of that I needed to be free from. And I appreciate just the wisdom in the scriptures that as we are free, we are able to love. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. That becomes possible when I'm free of the different challenges and the biases and the fears that lock up my heart. My relationship with men changed because of the scriptures, this one in particular, because I didn't have to abide by an image of what authoritarian relationships were in the past. I could see new things and I can have hope because my heart was freed up from what I had experienced. Now, with the selfishness, with the awareness, being able to study and understand what Christianity is, being able to be a Christian and to live a life of a Christian, that's all great. But I think the reality of it is, it's so easy for me to become religious. And I didn't know what religious people were. I always thought they were the older people sitting in the front. They were religious because they were on time. But punctuality isn't necessarily religion, but the holding to the rules, or in this case, the motivation, my heart motivation. When I think about selflessness, I can replace my selfishness with selflessness. I think, as the scripture says, a person may think their own ways are right, but the Lord weighs the heart. When I think about wrong motives, I think about giving, which would be the first element there. I can give, but sometimes it feels like the giving is being shaken loose. And if it's not money, it's my time. That my time, as we're volunteering, we're getting together with folks who need help, or just being able to support community efforts. My desire to get my things done impacts that. And when I'm not expressing the challenges I have with that, it feels like I'm being squeezed and turned upside down. And while I can be doing good things aren't happening on the inside. And I'm grateful that I get a chance to pray, to be able to reflect, and to become vulnerable, to be vulnerable with those different feelings, because there's grace, mercy, and again, freedom. The second picture is listening. As a husband, I listen a lot. I listen to my daughters. I listen to my wife. I listen to them as I'm surfing the channels. I listen as I'm trying to get something else done. I love the picture here because it helps me to see that just because I'm listening doesn't mean I'm hearing. And I think for me, being a Christian, it's easy to be religious. I can read, I can pray, and I can tell you, I don't remember what it was today I did that, until I get a chance to put those things together. And then ultimately, the willingness to serve. The picture below, the person serving is the bridge. I have no problem with that. I love that. And I know many people have no problem making sacrifices as people need sacrifices. Where I have a hard time is serving people who don't want the help, or people who are ungrateful. And the hard part with that is oftentimes that's in my own house. Being able to serve, or the desire to serve, or the desire to put myself out there, it is a struggle because I'm not getting the return that I desire. But I think as the scripture says, my desire is a good job, Dad, or way to go. And when I don't get that, that is the return that I want, as opposed to being considered or considering my love for others as God's ability to have an impact on other people's lives. There's another scripture that talks about the cords of human kindness. The guy on the bridge, the guy laying out as the bridge, he is truly a cord of human kindness. It's hard to be that cord sometimes. What helps my heart in understanding selfishness and the values of selfishness, the value of being able to bring that out, is when I'm selfish and I'm aware of my nature, or it's pointed out to me, and I'm vulnerable, it's easier for other people to become aware of their own selfishness. When it says to do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interests, but each of you, the interests of others. I find that to be very challenging, in that if there's a problem, I can fix it. Just listen to me. I'll tell you how to fix it, or I'll at least attempt to fix it. But the value isn't so much in the fix. It's in the hearing. It's in the understanding of the heart. And I think it's helping to connect back to, I need unconditional love. That means you've got to hear me. Same with my daughters and my wife. Same with my friends. Same with people that I am trying to help, as the good person. But even in situations where I'm not the good person. I am the evil entity. I am the face of the real estate developer. I am that challenge that people have to deal with. But I think even in those situations, being able to be empathetic and understanding of people's situations, scriptures help me not just to harden my heart and take on a role, but it helps me to understand that there's value, not just value in people, but there's value in what they feel. And when I get a chance to hear what those things are, we have more of an opportunity to work out a solution, a solution set, so to speak. But being able to value others helps me to hear and to understand that the needs of others can help me to participate in another solution, as opposed to when I'm just self-focused on what needs to get done. Trusting that God cares. I think self-focus or selfishness is primarily when I'm not believing that God cares. I get it. I've read many scriptures, and we'll probably read many more again, that tells me to trust in God. And many times it's super easy. But I think when it's not easy, it's really hard for me to cast my anxieties upon him because he cares. I don't really understand initially looking at that. Casting anxieties, is that writing a piece of paper and throwing it out? I don't really visualize that in the moment. And I think the grace and mercy that I have learned through faith is that my daily efforts require me to trust God. And it's a team effort to be able to communicate and to be able to be vulnerable, so that I become aware and aware of others, but also that it's a process. There is the beauty of this, casting my anxieties on him doesn't mean it has to be just in the moment. It lets me stew. It lets me be angry. It lets me be afraid. It lets me to go all through these different emotions and to be able to come back and to be able to fight my way back to a faith that allows me to trust God, and to be able to continuously push in prayer, or push in awareness, or push in conversation, to be able to push out an angry thought, and to be able to have my wife patiently listen, or a friend patiently listen, and reflect back to me the faith and that this is going to be okay. All I need to hear sometimes is, this is going to be okay. And that's a team effort. And I think a lot of what faith and Christianity is, it's not my effort. It is the team effort. And it's okay to color outside the lines, but to be able to remember that this is going to be okay because God cares for me. Embracing a lifelong journey of love and trust. Obviously, this is hard. The reason why I enjoy this picture, the idea of being a Christian, it's great on Sundays and it's great in church, but Once you get in the car, it's a different world. It's confronting everything from a different perspective. The nice thing about this picture is there's a grizzly bear on a trail, and the best position to be in is the guy taking the picture, who's behind the guy in the front. Oftentimes in my own heart, my selfishness isn't so much what I do, it's what I don't do. And I leave people hanging. I can leave people hanging out there, taking on the grizzly first, and then I'll figure out what to do after that. But it's also the opportunity to be able to consider what my alternatives are. I think it's challenging in the moment to be faced with a situation where my nature, where I feel I'm being taken advantage of, whether it be proper tenants paying rents, adjacent property owners pulling utilities into their area. To me, those are grizzly bears. I don't want confrontation. I don't like confrontation. I like to be liked. But I think part of the selfish part of my heart is to be able to see what the alternative is for this bear. The two hikers, the photographer and the hiker himself, those aren't the guys in trouble necessarily. The bear's in trouble. The bear isn't going to be on that road just to be on that road in front of humans. There's a problem going on. And I think my selfishness, when I look at that, is to run. It's to run faster than the guy next to the bear. But my heart of love is allowing my heart to slow down so that I don't let fear cause me to retreat into what is safe, but to be able to trust in God's strength that he has a solution to be able to address this bear and to protect both of us. And I think it's an interesting thing. I wouldn't recommend going after the bear. When I do run on the trails here in Briones, even in Briones, I do have a can of bear spray, and it's good on coyotes, it's good on cougars, and it's 5 minutes left. And those are the things that help protect my heart from danger. But I think it helps me to understand that it's not always the hikers who have a problem or myself. Sometimes the problem is with the threat. And if I'm not fearful and I'm trusting that God is going to protect me and he will strengthen me, I will have the creativity, I will have the resources, I will have whatever is needed and time to come up with a solution that helps all of us. It's the practical solution sets that have been helpful for me, besides the bear spray, would be DIY is another way to crumble. I talk with dads, I engage with a lot of dads, and it is a biased perspective of mine that as fathers, we like to do things on our own. We got this. Of course we do. Well, if we don't understand how to do it, we'll go to Home Depot, we'll buy another tool, we'll figure it out. But I believe that we need help. We need help from each other. The vulnerability, the awareness of our selfishness, the vulnerability and accessibility to understand what hurts and pains that have caused our own selfishness or our own fears that create selfishness and whatnot, how much we need each other in that. I find that a couple of resources are helpful. I love digital content. I love being able to read it whenever I want to read it. Deepspirituality.com is a resource that provides me with a lot of topics that I can go to depending on what I need or what I feel. I find that those are helpful because they have questions. I think Bible discussion groups, either join one, support one, or start one, just to be able to get vulnerability around where we're at. I appreciate ours because ours is multi-faith and different perspectives come in, but the reality of it is it's the same heart, the same challenges. And then finally, running Briones. It is an incredible thing to be able to move our bodies, to be able to enjoy where we're at, to be able to meditate, to pray, whether it's a 15-minute walk or sometimes it's a 5-minute wrestling run, to be able to work through issues. There are incredible practical opportunities all around us. And I appreciate the friends and family who join in these with me. Sarah, that's the end of those slides. That's the conclusion.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Larsen. There were a number of questions that I would like to pursue, but this is the time for those participants who have listened to your talk make comments. I especially appreciated you bringing this question down to the relevance of everyday life. You know, that to me was just exquisite. So thank you so much for bringing that perspective. So now I think your slides are still up, Mr. Larsen. Yeah, thank you. So now we can go back to the general group and see if people have questions for you, or if they have comments about what they've discovered about their own selfishness or their own goodness, I should say. So you know, you can use the little hand, and if you want to use the hand to raise your hand. Colleen. Hello, Colleen. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
Can you speak a little louder or turn it up?
Yes, there you go.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. I just appreciated your view on what selfishness is, according to you. But that was very good. Thank you.
So selfishness is taking care of self, I believe, is one of the things that DJ said about it. Is that correct, DJ? Taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I think that's the vulnerable part.
Yeah.
Honest and vulnerable.
Well, if you don't take care of yourself, it's pretty hard to take care of anybody else. So in a sense, we all have to be selfish, self-aware for sure, pay attention to ourselves, what we're saying, what we're doing, what we're thinking. Yes. So Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, what made me think about your conversation, DJ, was the fact that many times I think when I have an awareness, say, for example, I'm fearful or I'm hurt or I'm jealous or whatever, I can see that as a negative because I'm thinking about myself. But I think I hope I understood correctly, is that if I have that awareness, but I can turn it into good, it's like if I'm aware that I am in pain, it makes me aware of somebody else being in pain, and therefore that can be for the good. In other words, that's not just selfish for the sake of awareness for being selfish, but to use it to help somebody else. Like, if this is what helped me, I can understand you, I can help you as well.
Right. I think that's challenging when I hear, say, my wife expressing needs and hurts and whatnot, and it could be things that I caused. I just hear an opportunity to fix something and don't listen to what the pains and the hurts are. But I think to your point, you're right. If we don't get to the hurt and the pain, it's hard to really find that love.
To relate to somebody else, right? Yeah.
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 Thank you, Laura. Laura, let's see. Mary, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Okay. David, thank you for an excellent presentation. It was very clear. Some people find it easier to read than to hear. So you used the two teaching methods of talking and showing.
Thank you.
Very logical development and kind of very easy to follow. I like the idea that the way that you develop the theme is kind of very clear. I can see that you are a very spiritual man. There is a lot of love in your heart. You are very genuine in loving God and loving others. And I admire people who walk the talk. No matter what religion or spiritual path or whatever they belong to, the important thing is that we really be aware and contact the God in us, create our own contact so that it makes sense in everyday life and the way that we live our lives. And I will be one of the future presenters, so you gave me very good ideas.
Thank you for your
Okay.
kind words. I appreciate your perspective.
No, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Channing, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, DJ, so much. I agree with what everyone has said. I really like the clarity of your presentation, the simplicity of it, and the focus on the everyday life, because that's how we live, right?
Right.
But what if we're in a different life? What if we were in Ukraine? What
Right.
if we were suffering in war? What if we were in World War II? When we're in these extreme situations in humanity's history, how do we deal with selfishness during those times?
I think I don't want to be too quick to answer that, but I think there are challenges in our life that are life ending.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are those moments for each of us that we're close to. It is clearly not the Ukrainian war and conflicts like that, or significant social issues here in the US, but I think caring for an elderly parent as they're transitioning into death, I think it's children who have made decisions and choices who are going towards self-destruction. It's friends and friends and others who are facing not just death, but the slow process of how do you deal with something you've never dealt with before, which is the end of the world, quote unquote, end of the world. I think it's those moments which are very, very close to all of us. How do we deal with that? And I think I think the courageous people in the children, the parents, raising your children in a war zone and trying to do the best for them while you're just trying to survive, you do the best you possibly can.
Yep.
And ask for help.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. So are there any other comments or questions for Mr. Larsen? It's an extensive topic, of course, and we will continue with our discussion. I don't want to cut anybody off. I want to give, sometimes it takes a little while for people to think of something that they'd like to say or ask. And if we were all sitting in a room together, it probably would be maybe, I don't know, a little bit easier to be more spontaneous. One comment that I'd like to make, seeing as how I have this space, I'll grab it, is it seems like in order to be selfless, we have to take a wholeness. We have to be whole in ourselves. And how do we become whole in ourselves? So that's a question for you, Mr. Larsen, if you want to answer that quickly.
I thought that was the group panel.
Oh, well, no. Well, it can be, and we do have somebody's hand up also, so.
Right. I think same with Channing's question, you start with what, I think from me, from my perspective with respect to Christianity, you start with where you're at and you grow forward. And I think that's the destination isn't clear, but tomorrow is. And it's what I get to learn going forward, because once you master selfishness, there's a few other things you can master, or that I have a much greater perspective on selfishness, and I will be less selfish today because of our conversation.
It brings it to mind, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does, but
right up there. Yeah.
But tomorrow's a new battle.
Yeah, right. New definitions. Thank you. Andreas, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I believe, DJ, you said selfishness is, at the end you said this, when I don't believe anymore that God cares about me. That's a very interesting thought. It, of course, cuts both ways. When I think of Dostoevsky, it's then everything is possible. So my propensity for doing evil increases tremendously when I think
Right.
God is no longer caring or judging me. I thought you meant it the other way. I fall back when I feel abandoned by God in that sense. But yeah, so
Right.
very
I guess
interesting.
it's multifaceted, right?
Mhm.
When the situation, and I find it's situational. It's my response to a situation, because it isn't.
Yes.
We've done everything we're supposed to do as parents. We've given everything. We've done everything we're supposed to do. What advice we get from church, what advice we get from teachers, and we're still confronted with a challenge that is insurmountable. God doesn't care. People don't care. I don't know if it's a depressive state that I go into, but I wrestle with that. And I think that the cool part of that is not so much that I doubt, but that I can work through the doubt. I'll be there again, I believe. But I believe that, yeah, whether it's the evil at hand, yeah, the evil thoughts, they come easy and fast when I'm in those modes when I don't think God cares. But mostly I'm really sad, I'm hurt, I'm scared, and I don't know what to do.
And then do you turn to God?
I would love to say yes, absolutely. I think it's a process. We're all different in the different process we go through. It's how we get there to God. For me, it's being out there. There's an oak tree that I go by. And I remember when my wife was sick for a couple of years and she couldn't breathe. So she was breathing like through a straw. So it was like any moment, any disruption. So, and people are kind and they want to give you encouragement and scriptures. And it felt pointless. It was at that point where I just felt it was pointless. There's nothing the doctors are doing. I'm angry at the doctors. I'm angry at God. I'm angry at everything. And there was this tree, and it was budding leaves. And I said, even with all that's going on, you still bud new leaves. And I was angry at the tree. And I think I think that's the wrestling. It was helped me to get through deep anger, but I think it's a process.
It is, and it's a practice. Process and a practice. And
it's a team. It's a team.
Yes. And it takes persistence. It takes knowing where to go back to.
Yeah.
Each time, because we never totally get it all the way. That means we'd be somewhere in paradise or another place if we got it all together. Yeah.
We'd look good.
We can look good, but we can be really selfish inside. That's quite possible for us humans to look really good on the outside, and who knows what's going on the inside.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Larsen. It was a very energizing and energetic discussion. I really appreciate it. Excellent points that you brought out, especially the relevancy to our own personal lives.
I appreciate the opportunity. I really do. I look forward to our conversation going forward.
Good.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. And now I would like to welcome Rabbi Prelmuter. Is that Prelmuter or Prelmuter?
Well, it depends, on whether you're from the south or from the north.
So,
well, it doesn't matter. You can call me Mayor.
Oh, Mayor. Well, right. But I just wanted how do you say your last name?
Well, Prelmuter.
Okay, Prelmuter. Well, that's
I've
good.
been called Butter Pearl. I've been called, there's a lot of different
Butter Pearl. Well, anyway, we welcome you, and let me give just a short little bio on you. Rabbi Prelmuter served as rabbi in the Reformed Temple of Forest Hills for 36 years as a part of 42 years of congregational work, 3 of which were in Israel. He continues to be Rabbi Emeritus of the Reformed Temple of Forest Hills, New York. He was also Associate Adjunct Professor of Theology at St. John's University. Rabbi Prelmuter feels privileged to have served as a part of the disaster response spiritual care team that worked closely with the New York City Red Cross Disaster Response Unit. 3 years ago, he moved to Rossmore from Queens, New York, joined by his wife of 50 years, Deborah. They are blessed with 3 children and 5 grandchildren. Welcome, Rabbi Prelmuter.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I was really wanted to interact with the speaker during the the Q&A, but it was so nice seeing everyone else doing that, so I sort of held back. But just at the beginning, I just want to just say this: I've been almost waiting for this moment, because one of my beats with religion, religion in general, is that when it becomes institutionalized, I think the worst thing that ever happened to religion is when it became institutionalized, and we create hierarchies. So it's really refreshing to see someone who is not in a hierarchy, just a regular Christian, regular guy, being kind of leading a church, and it's almost the way it's its pure self. Because anyway, I've got a whole thing on that. But it was really nice, and I really enjoyed this from a number of perspectives. Firstly, I'm going to say the same thing, but I'm going to use a different vocabulary. And the other thing is that there's a really interesting generational thing going on here, that I'm celebrating my 80th year today.
Wow, today.
Well, actually, I turned 80. I turned 80 June 22nd, but every day I look and I say to myself, today I'm celebrating my 80th birthday, because every day is a celebration. And you always get a free dessert when you tell the waiter. So I guess that's selfish. But so those are 2 things. So I'm going to sort of do more formal. I don't have slides and all that kind of stuff, because again, the generational thing, I haven't a clue how to do a PowerPoint, and my students at St. John's just went crazy because of that. So I will get into my formal presentation now. Okay, here it goes. So I appreciate the committee asking me, as a representative of the Jewish voice, to tackle this important question: is humankind good or selfish? So before I begin this very brief reflection, I want to make 2 points before I make my points. Firstly, there are many voices in Judaism that range from the more restrictive ones to the more flexible ones. And we have many denominations or authentic ways to be Jewish. There's not just 3: Reform, Orthodox, Conservative, Reconstructionists. There's others. So as you learned from my bio, the brief bio, I represent the Reformed Jewish voice. I'm a Reformed rabbi. I've got a degree. My former congregation, we had a big sign. It was an evolving congregation, but we eventually put a big sign at the entrance, and it showed a circle of interlocked, multicolored hands. And our congregation's tent was extremely inclusive. It's sort of like Abraham and Sarah's tent. It was open on all sides. We didn't keep people out. People could get in. My second preface is that Judaism is, in the way I see it, is not about answers. There are no strict dogmas. It's about questioning. Questions that are met with rebuttals, opinions that are contradictory. But it's got a 3,000-year interpretive tradition. And that tradition keeps evolving, trying to discern what really is the authentic voice of God. Uncertainty is embraced as a part of the human experience. Many of these questions, these big questions, as we say, end up with no answers. They are unresolved, with the hope that in the future, one day, we'll have a messianic era when all questions are going to be resolved. The prophet Elijah will come down to earth to announce this messianic age, and any controversy or contradiction, questions are going to be resolved. which I haven't the vaguest idea when that's going to happen. It's going to be a time when we will be one humanity. Beethoven had a vision of that in the wonderful choral thing that he does in the Ninth Symphony. There's a German phrase, but I won't use that. A time when all men and women will be brothers and sisters. All conflicts resolved. Da 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 da. No, all faiths and cultures will respect each other's rights. That's very important, while embracing their own unique particularistic beliefs. And that also is important. And this will be a full expression of God's oneness, God's unity. Now, let me try to tackle the big question. Is humankind good or is humankind selfish? So I want to just rephrase the question a little bit. And I'm going to rephrase it to, is the human being good or is the human being selfish? So I think perhaps we're neither. Or maybe we're a bit both, of both. Now, the Torah's first book, or the Bible's first book, the book of Genesis, in fact, opens with this question. And in my response, I will share the thinking of, I'm going to use an Orthodox intellectual giant. His name is Joseph Soloveitchik. He wrote a book called Lonely Man of Faith. And he tells us that there are really, and there really are, if you study the Bible from a scholarly point of view, academic point of view, there are really two creation stories in the Bible and in Genesis. Each creation story gives a different reason why God created the human being. In the first creation story, that's Genesis 1, which begins, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We learn that on day 6 of creation, there's 6 days of creation, 7th is the Sabbath, God creates man, Adam, I'm using the Hebrew, the human being. In verses 27 and 28, it goes on to say, and God created the human being in God's image. In God's image, God created male and female. It doesn't say created separate, but created male and female. God created them. And God said to them 2 things. Be fertile and increase your numbers. In other words, have more human beings if you can. Continue the species. Fill the earth, and this is really important. If I had a PowerPoint, I'd put in big letters. Master it and rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the creepy crawly things in the vegetation. All this creation is yours to master and to rule because you are, again, big letters, the master and the ruler. Now, the task of human being number 1 is to master and rule, which implies that it's all ours. Do with it what we will. If we want to build roads and waterways, we can clear the vegetation and the trees to get the stuff we think will make our life easier because we are the masters and the rulers. Thankfully, for the sake of this creation, God's voice gives us Genesis 2, which is another creation story about the human being. And it goes like this. Chapter 2, verse 7. God forms a human being out of the dust of the earth, and he breathes life into this human being. The Hebrew word for breathing is neshama, or ruach, which is actually the core of the word spirituality. So this is a very deep, close relationship that God is actually breathing life into the human being. Okay? And then in chapter 2, again, verse 15, and the text says, and God took the human being and placed this human being in an incredible garden called Rossmore, the Garden of Eden, or jogging, along the top of the mountain and all that kind of stuff, and seeing all that stuff you're going to see. And the human being is part of the Garden of Eden. And the job is, this is what you got to do, human being, is till it and work it. The Hebrew is lovda. And then it says, and this is really the most important thing, to guard and protect the creation, l'shomra. Again, big words, big letters, capital letters, guard and protect this creation. Human beings, number two's existential purpose is to work, to form, to create, and I emphasize, to guard and protect the creation. So who are we human beings, you and I? Are we here to dominate, or are we here to conserve and protect? Are we exploiters, fundamentally selfish, or are we protectors, guardians, fundamentally good? Now, these myths are basic texts in Jewish tradition. In the beginning of the universe, we encountered the dilemma. The human being can be selfish, or the human being can be good. The choice is in our hands. Now, the conversation does not end here. Over the centuries, and even till this moment, Judaism adds layers of commentary, debate, different possibilities to this starting point. For example, in the 6th century AD, there's a volume or a bunch of volumes that just discuss basically every word of the Bible. It's called the Talmud, and it was completed then. And I'm going to share from you a passage from that encyclopedia of debate and questioning. The passage from the Talmud is the tractate Shabbat. There's 63 tractates or volumes in the Talmud, each focusing on a specific topic that has laws, debates, legends. The tractate volume Shabbat teaches us about all the laws and issues dealing with anything having to do with the Sabbath. And let me share a story relevant to our topic. So there's a story about an oracle. A prophetic voice says to a mother, "This son that was just born to you to carry on the creation of the world is going to be a thief." A thief is very selfish. The mother warns her son very early in his life, as soon as he's able to understand that this is going to be his nature. He's going to be a thief because that's basically his nature. But if he doesn't want this to be the case, he should put on a head covering and remind himself that there will be consequences if he becomes a thief. So what he should do? He should spend time praying, thinking, studying, trying to be unselfish, doing good deeds. That's very important. Acting. Be an actor. He does this well into his 20s. It works. He's a great guy. So one day he's sitting under someone else's fig tree. His head covering blows off. He's distracted. He looks up and he sees on the top of someone else's fig tree these spectacular figs that don't belong to him. And impulsively, he climbs the tree, steals the huge cluster of these wonderful figs because he's really hungry. And the lesson behind this interpretive story, it's called a midrash, that tries to answer meaningful questions, is the following. The human being is like that thief, innately selfish, like that baby that DJ was talking about. It comes out of the mother's womb and is selfish. But when that human being pursues wisdom, rationality, taking the time to get the legitimate facts, becoming empathetic, engaging in the process of evaluation, collaborating with like-minded, searching human beings cooperatively, the good can prevail. The human being is basically selfish with the potential to be good. Now, let me present a slightly nuanced response, again from the Talmud. Rabbi by the name of Hillel said, you may have heard this before, if I'm not for myself, what am I? In other words, if at times we have to be selfish, we have to take care of ourselves. We've got to make a living. I had to make a living. I had a congregation, I got paid for it, and I had to make a living. It wasn't all give, give, give. On the other hand, Hillel continues, if I'm only for myself, what am I? In other words, there got to be limits to selfishness, excessive self-focus, material excess, narcissism, the lust for power, creating more wealth through exploitation. And Hillel concludes with these words, if not now, when? If not now, when? And Hillel's opinion is that life is an existential dilemma. God gives us the present moment to be the best human being that we can possibly be in the moment. A third and final notion. Jewish sacred texts talk about something called tzedakah. Tzedakah does not mean charity. Charity comes from the Latin word caritas, which means, you give. You get up in the morning, you feel like being charitable, you're charitable. It means something different. Tzedakah means righteousness. And that is, tzedakah is the right thing to do because we are commanded by God to do or to give tzedakah. It is a commandment. It is a mitzvah. There is no choice when you are commanded to do something. And God, being fully righteous, strives to act, wants us to act like that. In other words, it's a question of, like, I think you have this concept in Christianity of imitatio Deo, act like, Jesus lived this life, and so we're act the life that Jesus led. In Judaism, it said, God, we are to act in imitatio Dei, like God would be. And our fundamental belief is God is righteous. Here are some examples of the mitzvah of tzedakah, to do the right thing. Here are a few tzedakah laws. 1, love the neighbor, love the immigrant, the other. Why? Because you were once an immigrant, a slave in the land of Egypt. We know what it's like to be an immigrant. We experienced it. 2, that's just one example. When you harvest your field, leave the corner of that field or anything you drop for the poor. This was an ancient version of the food pantry, the soup kitchen, Meals on Wheels. I'm sure many of us either worked in a soup kitchen or now, or maybe one day we'll get Meals on Wheels. And it's a great thing to have. The list of tzedakah commandments just goes on and on and on. And the presupposition, the presupposition behind these commandments is that the human being is innately selfish, and the selfishness has to be reined in so that the innate good that the human being is capable of can be strengthened so that the creation will be protected. The obvious conclusion I draw from the 2 creation stories at the beginning of Genesis and the 3 brief interpretations, which I share this afternoon, is that today we are still grappling with this question. Is the human being good or is the human being selfish? You mentioned this. In conclusion, I would like to share a modern midrash, something that was made up about 20, 30 years ago. A modern tale that has deep meaning, and it was written by a colleague of mine who I respect very much. He wrote a book called Does God Have a Big Toe? And he gave all kinds of cool modern explanations. And he says, on each of the 5 days of creation, the angels ask God, is the world finished yet? And God answers, nope, the world is not finished yet. On the 6th day of creation, God creates the human being and says to the human being, please finish the world for me. I've been working for 5 days, 6 days, my gosh, I am absolutely exhausted. And the human being says, how are we going to do this seemingly impossible task? And God responds, well, you got an impossible task. You keep trying to finish the world, but I'm going to be your partner. I'm not going to just let you hang out there. And the human being asks, well, what's a partner? And God responds, well, a partner is someone you work with on a big thing that no one can do alone. If you have a partner, that means that you can never give up because your partner is depending on you. Observing this, the angels asked God, is the world finished yet? And God answered, I don't know. Go ask my partners. So my question to all of us, my fellow partners with God, and I truly feel that very much in this connection and in what the group is trying to do in this program that's gone out over the years, is how do we finish the world? How do we finish the creation? A creation with all these unresolved issues that hinge upon our nature. Is it selfish or good? How are we going to deal with climate change? How will we tackle income inequality? What about scientific uncertainty? Will Oppenheimer's splitting of the atom benefit or destroy us? How are we going to overcome our selfish nature and strengthen and enhance our good nature? And perhaps one answer is that we can get to a point where Anna Frank, who wrote in the diary of Anne Frank, had this teenage musing on the night of her family's arrest in that secret annex, that this musing will be realized when she wrote, I still believe that people are basically good at heart. So I look forward to engaging and to hearing what the community has to say about how do we, what are some of the major challenges that we have in front of us? How do we deal with it? Because we're all partners in the same enterprise.
Thank you, Rabbi Mayer.
I won't say amen because it's not over.
Oh, please. Oh, no, go on ahead. You've got time.
Amen. Amen. You sit down and, people mumble and they say, they do sermon evaluation.
So what do you all think, or what do any of you think about what the challenges are? What can we do as partners with God, as the rabbi was talking about, partners with each other to handle the challenges either within our own lives or in the world that we live in?
Right. And also, feel free to ask me questions about anything.
Oh, please.
I don't want to deflect you from, I don't want to pass, you may want to challenge me to something. Okay.
So go ahead, Bill Patton.
Well, first of all, I really appreciated the the discussion, the presentation. That I really love the fact, Rabbi Prelmuter, that you placed it in the context of there are no answers. That really it's about questions, identifying the questions, and sometimes that's the best we can do as humans, is to clearly identify the questions. And I like how you started with that. And then I liked very much how you laid out the fact that the human being, human nature has two sides to it. We are, to answer the question, is humankind good or selfish? We're both. We all have the capacity to do both. And I think that's a really important understanding to begin with. We have both sides to us. And then we also have this part of being human, it strikes me, is all this, we have to learn how to live with uncertainty. There are no, and that feeds into the whole idea of that there are no answers. There's more questions than answers. So then I liked how you got into really looking at the two different versions. Are we masters of the natural world, or are we the protector of creation? And I think clearly that's a nice dichotomy to address as well. And and then to end with saying, you know, that life is an existential dilemma, because I think that's what we place it in. There are no certain answers here, but it presents us with an existential dilemma. We have the potential to be the best person we can be, but we're basically selfish we're selfish with the potential to be good. And then finally, to end with the whole idea of how does freedom of choice act into this? And you presented the two different commands, one to that God commanded us to act a certain way, but we still have a choice in that. We still can choose to do that or not. And I just think that's also the essence of what it is to be human. We can ask the questions, we can kind of try to figure out the answers, move toward the answers, but it's still ultimately our choice. I got a lot out of it. I enjoyed it very much. I thought it was very, very fruitful conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
So-
Mary Wood. You're there we
Hi
go.
there. Yes, I'm good. Well, I was thinking, what is the importance of this question? And the importance of the question from how much both of you talked about what we do in life, the importance is, to me, you'll always have to be aware that you have both in you. And you're always gonna, well, as Bill said, you have the capacity for both. There's no end to challenges. And I'd like to bring it down to extremely practical level for an older person. I see all these requests for money for the Ukraine, things like this. And I see my sister just spend $100,000 on home care for her husband. And I see people up in Fort Bragg, for example, who turned out a school tax. Many of us become afraid when we get older that we're not going to be able to keep being independent financially, physically, or something like that. So I feel challenged right now is, am I selfish if I turn this down? And how do I decide? Do I say, well, I want to save a certain amount for long-term care and then let God take over, or Medi-Cal take over, or, you know, I'm going to live my life in fear. So my point basically is, well, it doesn't have to be all about climate change and stuff like that. It could be a daily, a weekly challenge.
So I hear what you're saying. It's, you know, there are various ways you can look at this. Like, for example, GJ was really personalizing, and I think that's really important to just look at, you know, to really personalize Because we each are faced with, something. There's nobody who is not faced with anything. Abraham Joshua Heschel said, only a fool says he doesn't have problems. It's universal. And also the whole, this whole concept of uncertainty, basically it comes down to, we just don't know. We just don't know what's in the next moment. And in the face of that uncertainty, how do we, engage the world, engage our loved ones, engage with ourselves, and, make these decisions? There are limits, in Jewish law, Jewish tradition, there's a limit to how much, if you have a big fortune, say, or a little fortune, or small savings, and you're trying to save for your, when you become old, you're going to need long-term care. So should you be giving all your money to the Ukraine? No, I mean, there's a limit to what, there's actually a limit, I think 20-30%. You can't give more than that because you need the rest of it. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, okay? But to give nothing and to totally ignore that something like this is going on, do something, because if there are hundreds of thousands, a million people in the world who care about this, so if all those million people or 100,000 people do something, even a little something, it's going to end up as a big something.
Thank you. Thank you. That actually helps me.
Go ahead, DJ. You're muted.
I couldn't figure out how to make the hand go up.
You technological genius.
Yeah, I know.
It's inside reactions.
Oh, it is. It's called AI.
Yeah, I thought real hard and it didn't work. But so, Mayor, I really appreciated what you were saying, and the where you drew the wisdom from, the books. I was hoping to get your email address so we could dialogue, and I would love to be able to capture what the texts were.
Yeah, I'd love to have lunch with you and talk to you and, get to know you, because I've got some big questions about artificial intelligence and, which is, I mean, huge stuff. How do we deal with that?
Right. How about lunch on Friday?
Actually, we'll figure it out.
Perfect. So the nuance of the thief, the young thief.
Yeah.
There is no freedom from choice. You may have freedom of choice, but there is no freedom from choice. So the figs, is it better to have stolen those figs or to go and collect rent or revenue by getting people to do what I want them to do, to get the money to go buy the fig? One's exploitation, I guess. The other is initiative.
So yeah, but you're giving them a service. You're collecting rents, and they're getting a house. They're getting something.
Right.
You're not stealing the money. As long as you're not charging much rent, and you're not a slumlord. But we live in a society. Profit is it's there. And I think there's a difference between where there's a gap. What is it? Like 10. The gap, the wealth gap, is getting so big that, I mean, it's just outrageous. And just sharing a little bit of the wealth, and you could eliminate so much poverty. There are ways to do this without people who are millionaires and billionaires losing their millions and billions of dollars, or even 100,000-aires. Tiny little more tax, you could really help. You really make some significant changes.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was reading an article where it was talking about the lottery, the amount of money that Californians spend on the lottery, not what we win, but those dollars that no one expects to win, is close to $9 billion a year in dollars that they spend. We could wipe out homelessness, or however it is to be phrased, in the state if we were to take that same revenue. And the funny thing is, it's just $1 that people are using that they don't expect to win anything, but they'd rather have that the hopeful unexpected win, as opposed to seeing that collected together.
It's and the money we spend on homelessness, we throw it into ways. San Antonio solved the problem very, very beautifully. They just reallocated resources, and they've done a great job with the homeless. Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's quite exciting that you two gentlemen are going to get together and share more. That's a first on, I think, Big Questions, is where right in front of us, two speakers made arrangements to let's talk further. That's beautiful. Good. Channing, go ahead.
Yes, Sarah, this is the first time we've had some real interfaith interaction of our speakers. So thank you so much. That's wonderful. I was pondering a lot of what you said, where we were told that we are here to master and to rule. And equally, humanity was asked to guard and protect the creation, those two things.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at human history, and I look at who has answered the master and rule and who has mastered the guarding and protecting the earth. And so it looks to me like God has created a democracy, not an authoritarian situation in the world. We have free will. We have the right to make up our own minds. And here are the two big questions that we have to address. Are we here to dominate and to rule, to serve our own self, or to make progress, or to gain more money, or are we here to protect the planet? So I always look at how humanity is answering those questions. I know that in my own studies, I've learned that the Native Americans have prioritized guarding and protecting the planet.
Yeah.
And that is integrated into their culture and into their faith. So they put that into action. It's not an authoritarian thing where the ruler of the Native Americans says, you must do this. This is a part of their natural belief system. So I'm looking for a way to get humanity into the same mind space that the Native Americans are in, to value taking care of themselves as well as taking care of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what I'm looking for is how do we go from thinking about these things into action?
Yeah, well, that's an issue, but we all have a bit of the Native American within us, because we all come from traditions that, at one time, whether you're Jewish, Christian, whatever you were, I mean, the ancient Hebrews lived very close to the land and very close to the soil. So they were sort of like the Native Americans of the Middle East. And actually, when you go back anthropologically, all humanity we lived in a tribal society. So the tribal society, our problem was, we cultivated, we became sedentary, and then we created hierarchies, and we created kings, and then you got the beginning of what is totalitarianism, where man is turned into a god. I mean, like fascism, Hitler, the Nazis, Stalin, communists. I mean, the state was the god. That was the religion. Okay.
Right.
And so they suppressed religions. They didn't like Jews because Jews asked questions.
Right.
Yeah.
Asked questions. And I would say we are at a very critical moment here in our own country's history, and which concerns me very much.
Right. Exactly.
We are
Me
indeed.
too.
Yeah.
Me too.
So we have time for Young Kim. Please, you had your hand up.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I'm a newbie here. It's only the second time I'm attending. And after the first meeting, I thought occurred to me, which I thought maybe I'd like to bring it up. Then on the second thought, well, it doesn't really belong in the discussion. So I was not going to mention it until the rabbi touched on the subject. And our speaker also touched on the theme. So I got the courage to speak up. what the thought I had since the first meeting. Now, when you ask a question, there are two ways to frame it. The way it is framed for the discussion is either or. Are human beings good or selfish? It's a dualistic binary, or there are two choices. And there are numerous examples where we phrase questions in this binary dualistic fashion. Guilt or innocent, war or peace, hot or cold, life or death, right or wrong, nature or nurture. In all those cases, we frame the question as either or nothing, binary. But a little reflection will tell you that in life, as in nature, very few things are really can be characterized as either or. Right. They ought to be understood as more or less. So my background is in economics. We always talk about more or less and rarely about either or. The reason that it is important that we talk not as either or nothing, but as more or less is that there is very interesting line of research in linguistics. And the central theme of the research is that the language influences our thinking. So if we keep talking in terms of either or nothing, we tend to think along the same line too, and that's very, very unfortunate. So let me take a very specific example, because this group talks so much about theology. Now, I have a problem with heaven and hell. My problem is of the following kind. I ask a simple question myself. Am I good enough to go to heaven? Then my answer is, well, not really. In a binary choice, I'm headed to hell, but instead of making that inference, I ask myself, am I bad enough to go to hell? Then I say no. So if you say no to either one, where does it leave you? It leaves you right in the middle, where more or less. So I was thinking in terms of the various theologies. The Catholics had enough sense to invent purgatory. Purgatory covers that wide band between the two extremes of heaven and hell. So the purgatory helps a little. Now, if you pursue along that line about the variety of the things, more or less, between heaven and hell, then you end up in the Indian tradition, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Brahmanism. So through this infinite repetition of birth and incarnation and the karma, you have this infinite variety between heaven and hell. And I once asked my Jewish friends, in Jewish theology, do you have heaven and hell? And the answer I got was that yes, we do have afterlife, and we do have heaven and hell, but they are not central part of Judaic theology. So it is there, but we don't really talk about it. We just put it out of the sight, and our focus is more on here and now. Now, if you travel along that path and reach the other end of it, then you end up in the Confucianism. We don't talk about, in Confucianism, they don't talk about afterlife. It's not that they deny it, but they simply are saying that we don't know anything about it. So why waste time on it? So there are different ways to deal with this problem of thinking in either or, all or nothing, or black or white terms, where the issue really is more or less. So it is just a comment I had, and maybe it doesn't belong in the discussion, but
Oh, absolutely.
some of you pointed out that it is not, humans are not all good or all selfish. There's some variation within it. Then matter of how much selfish and how much good. It's matter of more or less. That's the way I think we ought to think about. Almost all important things I can think about, they all ought to be understood in more or less, not all or nothing, war or peace, guilt or innocent, or black or white, left or right, up and down. In every single case I can think of, there are some exceptions I can think of, but in all.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
To approach the problem is not as either or all or nothing, black or white, or dualistic or binary, but in terms of more or less.
That has really expanded.
Finally, I got it out of my mind.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Young Kim. It is definitely belonging in this conversation. I think it has expanded all of our thinking, not either or, more or less, as spoken from an economist. Thank you so much for sharing your thought. We have time for one more and then we need to go. Thank you. Go ahead, Ruth.
Thank you.
So last week, our friend Sally reminded us of a quotation from Maya Angelou, which says, if you don't know your purpose in life, just do some good.
That is a great ending for our session. Thank you, Ruth. Well, thank you all, and thank you especially DJ Larsen and Mayor Prelmuter for your presentations. And I just get such a kick out of thinking of you guys getting together and talking more. I think that's what the world needs more of, is for people to get together and talk. And thank you again, Young Kim, for your thoughts. I think that they really added to this discussion. Not either or, more or less. So until next time, and next time, we have Mariu will be speaking on Ekankar, and Kristen, I don't know her last name, will be Powell. Thank you. Kristen Powell will be representing the Unity Church perspective. So this has been a very rich time, a very rich discussion. I hope we go home and continue to think. Go ahead, Channing.
When you're done, Sarah, could I make one small announcement?
I am done. Yes.
Okay. Yes. So thank you everyone for coming today. I wanted to announce that the Interfaith Council is sponsoring what are called site visits. And we will be visiting the Hindu temple in Livermore on September the 16th. If you would like to come with us, you can email me. My email is CHANINCA. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah.
At AOL.com. September 16th at 3 o'clock. We'll have to drive there. But if you'd like to come, we're meeting in front of the Gateway Clubhouse. So I'll put my email in the chat.
Good. Thank you, Channing. Yeah, Channing is heading up visits to other religions, other places of worship. So thank you for that. Okay.
In October, we'll be visiting the Sufism Reoriented Temple here in Walnut Creek.
Right,
so
the big
Hindu
white
temple in September, and
the big white one. Yeah.
Yes,
so Channing's the one to be in touch with if you're interested on the site visits like that. Okay, I think that we all go forth in our life, and thank you all for participating, and especially Mr. Larsen and Mayor. Just very, very rich session. Okay, until next time.
Thank you for your for doing this. I think it's so important. Thank you.
It is important for people to ask questions and to think and to talk. Yes, absolutely.
Just one quick response to Mr. Kim.
Yes.
Central problem, I remember a teacher of mine saying, religion is a response to man's finitude.
Ah. Mm.
That's what started the ball rolling.
Well, that's something to take and think about. Yes.
I thank Mr. Kemp for raising that.
Yes, yes. Okay, until next time, thank you again, Will, and Channel 28 and Rossmore News, and all of you for joining us.
Blessed be, siblings. Have a great day. The recording will go up within the hour.
Oh, great. You'll send it
Thank
to me,
you, Will.
right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Will. Thank you. Thank you all.
And Ruth, do you, or Sarah, do you want to meet?
Yes, let's meet.